This way, that's where I said.
Oh, so
I'm on. Is it ideological?
I'd like to call the September meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Paula, would you call the roll?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jennifer Bourne.
Present.
Heather Clemmer. Neela Crank Clements. George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
And Ann Zacharitz. You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to go over the procedures for the meeting. The chairman will announce each case and ask any party having interest in the case to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will then discuss the details of the case, calling on staff to provide details of proposals. Following discussion, the commissioners may choose to ask questions of the applicant, the staff, and any other interested party. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. And then following the public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. Or 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant, and city construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. Any person aggrieved by decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Appeals. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice appeal with the clerk of the BOA. I'd like to request everybody turn off their cell phones, please, including myself. Item 2, from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer. Katie?
Just a note that the public meeting that had been scheduled for August 29th to discuss demolition criteria for other design review districts, we had some concerns with that being right before the holiday weekend, so that's been rescheduled for September 19th. And just a reminder, that's demolition criteria that does not affect the HP districts. It's for the other design review districts, downtown, Bricktown, et cetera, in the city, but that's open to the public for anyone who's interested in that process.
Okay, thank you, Kay. So now, item 3, acceptance of the minutes. Any comments on the minutes?
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jim Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are accepted. Code enforcement report, item 4. Is Greg here? So no code.
Yeah, I haven't spoken with Greg today. If anyone has questions about the code enforcement report, I guess you can pass them along to staff, and we'll follow up with Greg and let you know.
Okay, thank you. Continuous announcements and requests, item 5. No contingencies?
No requests prior to the meeting, and none that have come in since then either.
Okay. Public hearings, item 6.
HPCA 14-168 at 120 Northwest 29th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Request to receive Historic Preservation Commission comments on the garage structure in the process of being declared dilapidated by the City of Oklahoma City Development Services Code Enforcement regarding 1, properties that contribute to the historic integrity of the historic district, and 2, effective proposed demolition of the structure on the historic character of the property and district. And just, we've had several of these lately, so I think everyone's familiar, but a reminder that this is going through the city's code enforcement process for dilapidated structures. We do not issue a certificate of appropriateness for that process or that demolition. We merely comment on the historic significance of the structure as part of that review process. So we're not commenting on the condition or whether or not we think it's deteriorated beyond repair, just on the historic integrity.
Okay, so no action?
No, we still have to, the commission is still supposed to forward comments. So there's recommended comments in the staff report.
Comments?
I move to the staff, to agree with the staff recommendation and to forward the following comments. 1, the structure retains its historic integrity and contributes to the historic integrity of the district. And number 2, demolition of the structure will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district.
Okay, second?
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer Bourne, seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's recommended. On to the National Register nominations. Item B, anything?
No National Register nominations this month.
Okay. Item C, 6C, consent docket cases.
I wanted to point out that we have 2 items on the consent docket that are fences that do not meet the guidelines for administrative approval. They're forward of the 40% mark and are proposed in those locations in both cases because they're screening existing mechanical equipment. Staff felt like that was the most appropriate place to put the fence, and it was the most appropriate way to screen that existing equipment, and that we'd rather have it screened by a consistent looking fence than out and open. But just wanted to call everyone's attention to that it's on the consent docket. If people aren't comfortable with that, we won't put those on the consent docket in the future.
And that is consistent with previous action of this commission?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I guess I looked at those as well, and I'm okay with what staff recommendations are, and that you have it under conditions in that it's a unique circumstance so that someone isn't coming back and saying, hey, I want my fence further back or further forward, excuse me.
And when it comes to, if you're putting in new mechanical equipment that's going to be on the side of the house where it's visible, we do have to have a CA for that, and we do always require people to put it as far back as possible. So, hopefully we won't have issues with new applications coming in to put the HVAC equipment right up at the front corner of the house. But when it's already there, there's only so much we can do about that.
Right.
Then the fence would be in the correct place. And
Can I ask a question about number 5, the type of what the applicant actually turned in, just for a clarification? I just noticed when I was looking at the application that there is a drawing of the deck and so forth, but there's just a drawing of the deck. There's not a drawing of the back of the house. And I thought that we required when we did designs like that the design would actually show the whole elevation. Am I?
I guess that's something we're probably not always consistent about. If we feel like we've got enough documentation of what the deck's going to look like, and then if we've got good photos of the back of the house, we were comfortable that people would be able to understand what was being proposed. If you feel like more information is needed, we can certainly ask them for more. But
No, thank you.
Anything else on the consent docket? Is there a motion?
There's a comment
Oh, excuse me.
from the Edgemere Park
Yeah, is
on item
there anybody here to
EIC
speak about
6.
any of these items? No?
Expanding.
Can somebody,
No, I guess they agreed, so
what is that?
they agreed, I'm sorry. I thought that they had a comment, but they were just agreeing with staff.
Okay. All right.
I move to approve the consent docket.
Second.
It's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent docket approved.
So if your item was on that consent docket, items 1 through 6, under C, consent docket cases, then you are approved and you are good to go. You don't need to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, items D, cases for additional individual consideration. I'm going to have to abstain on item 8, 910 Northwest 21st Street. And since I would be abstaining, we'll lose our quorum on that item, and so we can't take action on it. Therefore, the item will be heard at the October 1st meeting. We're down 3 members today. Sorry about that. Anything else we need to do? Follow up? Nothing? Okay, let's go on to other items for individual consideration.
HPCA 14-00029 at 434 Northwest 27th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of John Roddick by Christy Smith for certificate of appropriateness to 9 construct shed required. This item has been heard by the commission twice before, and we've yet to receive any additional or revised information from the applicant. So at this point, we're recommending denial.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right, any comments?
I move to deny HPCA 14-00029, item 9, to construct shed with prejudice, with the specific finding that the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and is not consistent with the provisions of the guidelines and is not in compliance with the relevant sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section D of the staff report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer Bourne and seconded by George Massey. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Guy got me off because you always do that. George. Okay, next item.
HPCA 14-00077 at 307 Northwest 25th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Samir and Nahaya Khalil by Samantha Khalil for certificate of appropriateness to number 7, install wood posts at front porch, elective. Number 8, replace siding at rear addition, required. 10, install side landing and railing, required. 11, replace windows at addition, required. And 13, replace missing portion of sidewalk, required.
Okay, is this applicant present? You are present? I want to come up just in case there's questions.
Hello.
Could you state your name and sign in, please?
Omar Khalil.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Comments?
I have some comments. I was wondering, are we allowing unpainted cedar posts as a compatible material?
You know, officially, we don't regulate paint on wood, so we don't regulate paint colors. So even though it historically is more likely that would have been painted, we've kind of let that slide.
Is it a paintable material? Are the porch posts paintable?
Yeah, they're paintable.
Is it a rough cedar or a smooth cedar?
It's a rough cedar. So, I mean, we could paint them either or. We just stained it just to give it a different look.
We're looking for compatible.
I mean, if we have to paint them, we can paint them.
I have mainly because I've seen some other cedar posts and unfinished cedar shingles going up. It's popular. And the ones I've seen are ones that are not getting CAs perhaps and are being reported. So I hate to set a precedent by allowing cedar posts to be accepted as a compatible alternative to what would never be there, which I would say would be paint grade wood posts, square posts.
Okay.
And I don't disagree with that. I think that, historically wood is a painted material, and our guidelines talk about painting material that's never been painted, like brick. Wood typically is painted. Cedar, in this case, doesn't necessarily have to be painted from a maintenance and durability standpoint, but you're right, it looks out of place as an unpainted wood finish.
I don't see that it's compatible.
Yeah, okay.
It is wood, but I don't see that rough cedar wood. I mean, we distinguish we distinguish very closely on a lot of other materials, and it just seems like that this one would be, like I say, maybe a precedent that other people would come in and say, well, I don't have to paint, so I can put up I could do my trim in rough cedar and stain it.
Right.
I could do my window surrounds in rough cedar and stain it, which is kind of popular in new construction right now. So how would we say no to them to do that if we started out by approving this? My thought.
So, applicant willing to paint just at the front columns you're talking about, or all of the?
What is your thought on that? Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. They're stained actually right now. They're just natural.
Right. But do you see that there's really not any other stained porch post in the neighborhood?
Yes.
That would be my question about that.
They can be painted, and then I think they'll fit right in with everything else.
Okay.
If this isn't a guideline, is this a recommendation that we?
Let me take a look real quick. If you want to continue to discuss the other items, I'll take a look at exactly what our language says about paint.
Well, I would say it's about the material.
About what?
About the material.
Yeah.
Any other questions about other items?
We do have a guideline that says original or historic wood finishes must be maintained and painted if painted historically. This isn't a historic wood finish, but it's replicating, approximating historic wood columns.
So what kind of columns were there originally?
There were, I think they were metal, round metal ones.
The metal? Non-original, probably. Oh, there's a camera.
I have a question about number 8 also. I think staff also had a question, but when I looked at the material that you, or the information about the material, which is the siding for the rear, that it is some type of an OSB material.
On the back, it's a masonite. I believe it was a masonite. It originally had masonite on it from when we started.
It says wood strands or wood fiber is how it starts out.
With a cut sheet?
Well, there's just on page 6 of 20.
Right.
I mean, up at the top, and then there was, that's all, I mean, up at the top it says OSB. I mean, it's talking about OSB as far as where they're finding it on the site, but the only information that says what it is, it says it starts with wood strands or wood fiber. I thought that we were limited to the cement type products. Is that incorrect? Or wood? The guidelines, as I understand them, only allow for the cement type products or wood.
So what is hardy board? Is that a cement?
Cement.
Okay.
And my final one is on the replacement of the addition. It says you're applying for vinyl windows.
Yes.
Okay, it's my understanding we don't allow vinyl windows, even on the rear. Okay.
It's original, it had the window, the metal
It
window
had
in the
metal.
back.
It what?
It had metal windows in the back.
Had metal.
It's two, and it used to be in the
Three.
back.
Three.
Yeah.
See?
When we bought it.
When you bought it. Katie, could you clarify the window?
Well, just that even if the window that was there was not historic or was not appropriate, when you do replace that, you have to go back with something that meets the guidelines. So even though what was there was not a historic wood window, once you take that out and put something else in, it has to meet the guidelines and be either wood or aluminum clad wood.
Okay. Comments? Motions?
Motion? Okay, I don't have any comments on the landing or the sidewalk. Albert?
Staff had recommended a condition on the sidewalk,
Sidewalk.
right?
Right.
That the concrete be treated to match the aged appearance of the remaining concrete. Were you aware of that comment from staff?
No.
Did anybody have any other comments on the post?
The
Would
boss
really-
make the house look nice.
Right.
I said, the boss says make the house look nice.
Right. I understand your point of view.
What, you want us to paint it?
What we're saying is that, you know, our goal is to have compatible materials. And that neighborhood, those type of houses have a paint, use a wood that you can paint with a smooth finish that'll stay on it. So that would not include a rough cedar. Even if you paint that, it's not going to be that attractive painted. It's really not meant to be painted. So,
Excuse me just a second. We think we know who you are, but could you identify yourself, ma'am? And-
I'm Nazia Khalil.
Okay, and you need to sign
I'm
it
his
also.
mom.
Yeah, you need to also sign it.
Honor that.
well, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'm not really sure how to. I'll make a motion to approve HPCA items number 10 and 13 with the unique circumstances and conditions with the specific findings that the proposed work with the agreed-upon conditions will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property with the, and including staff's conditions that the for item 13, that the concrete be treated to match the aged appearance of remaining concrete.
We're not
I said enough.
interested in painting the side rail or anything? Just the front?
That would be the, so I'm making a motion to approve just items 10 and 13.
As 10, 13 as is?
Yes,
With
staff's condition.
Okay. Second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, items 10 and 13 are approved.
I make a motion to deny HPCA BID to items 7, 8, and 11. I'm not sure how I say the next one.
Angela, do they still have continuances? Or, okay, we could continue those and give them one more time to revise if they're...
Would you like another?
That way you can review all this and work with Katie and find out. I mean, I would feel sad to deny you this. I mean, I think it's something you could work through to make it work. I mean, would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
What is number one is need to be done?
I'm sorry?
Denying.
I know, they're denying number...
7.
No, number one.
Why? On the wood post? I do not believe that that rough-hewn cedar is a compatible material in this historic district for this type of architecture.
They can't be rough cedar. They need to be smooth.
Because you can't paint it.
It should be smooth.
I mean, it's not sold to be painted. I'm not saying it's not painted on occasion. I'm just saying it's not meant to be painted. It's meant to be stained.
Yeah, this is
Right.
stained now.
And in this neighborhood, the architect, I don't think that you would find another example of trim work that's been stained and/or on rough cedar.
I actually think that you guys should just work, if you want to work with staff on it, because I don't have a problem with painted cedar. I think it looks great.
We can
And
we can
I think
rewrap we can
you
wrap them
paint
with
it.
smooth white pine, and you'll never tell.
Right.
They have
That would be
so
I'm
many
in
things
agreement.
we can do differently.
Even if you do paint it, I have painted cedar, and it paints just fine.
And we
You
could
might
sand-
have to
we could
put a lot
sand
of
them
coats
smooth.
on it.
There's multiple ways we can make
Right.
it work. It's not, out of the question to make it.
I don't have a problem with that, and I think if you work with staff, you could complete the rest of them and keep
Wrapping
moving
them
forward.
would probably be the easiest thing to do. Wrapping them a white pine to match historical preservation would probably be the best, easiest thing to do, and then paint them. So we can fix it.
So we could continue those 3 items to the October 1st meeting and work
Okay, then.
with you in between now and then to get what else we need?
Yep, we'll reapply, we'll fix it.
I move to continue HPCA VID
Thank
to items 7, 10, and, no, I'm sorry.
7, 8,
My
and
notes. 7, 8, and 11. With the specific findings that additional information is required from the applicant in order to determine whether the action requested is consistent with all relevant guidelines and are in compliance with the relevant sections of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in section C and/or D of the staff report.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's going on with the other siding?
What?
Number 8,
It was continued.
why?
Because it's not historical.
Because that replacement siding is not an allowed material.
It used to be like the same thing on the house when we bought it. When we bought the house, it had the siding.
It's been continued, so if you work with staff and address questions, we'll take it up again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00096 at 101 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Esther Arnold for a certificate of appropriateness to 1 installed chain link fence elective. This is an application that the commission actually approved, I believe 2 months ago, with a condition changing the proposed location of the fence, that after the fact, the applicant said, I really am not comfortable with that. I don't want the fence to be in that location. This is a case where there's a secondary structure on the site that faces Broadway, is currently not occupied. The applicant would like the fence to screen all the way across the front of the building because they have quite a bit of foot traffic along there. But that doesn't, if it was a garage or something, then we would allow the fence to be in that location. But because it's a second dwelling, our guidelines don't allow the fence to go all the way across the front like that. It's technically the front yard of the house. So they're hoping you'll reconsider a couple of different options proposed for that fence.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay. Any comments?
So unique circumstances, do we have this industrial building is on the site also, correct? Is that the unique?
I mean, you can certainly identify that the properties that are across Broadway from this are a different, of a different character, that it's an industrial commercial setting.
Right.
And we often allow various fencing solutions that don't meet the letter of the guidelines when it's adjacent to some other uses. So.
But staff's recommendation is to go with what we originally approved and not put a fence across what would be considered the front yard of the secondary dwelling. Right, yeah.
So wouldn't that just deny this application then and just go to what was approved before? Or am I missing something? Because if the circumstances, to me, haven't changed from when we approved a condition before, I would rather not go back on it, especially if they're not present.
I'm going to let Angela chime in because she's worked with this applicant a lot more closely than I have on what they're hoping to accomplish.
The circumstances have not changed from the previous review of this application. The applicant simply was not happy with the decision and did not have an opportunity to rebut that. They would like to replace the chain link fence back to its original location. If they cannot go all the way across the front of this secondary building, they'd like to at least put it back where it was previously before they started removing the chain link. The chain link is transparent. It did not travel the entire length of the secondary building. It covered the portion of the secondary building that you see in the photograph that is siding only. And they'd like to be able to take it at least that far if possible. There's nothing in the guidelines that puts staff in a position to approve that. We did use unique circumstances to get the 5 foot approved, whereas 4 foot is typically approved for chain link fencing. The only other unique item is that it is in fact a transparent fence, and you may believe that it would be appropriate for that to travel in front of that secondary dwelling.
Angela, did you say that it was that they're wanting to put it back in the original place?
The original location, the last post of the fencing that was there prior to removal extends partially across the front of that secondary structure. And they'd like to put it back in that same location. It will be 1 foot taller than it was previously.
How long had it been gone?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. They started removing the fence and then came in to apply for a certificate, so I don't know.
So on the site plan submitted by the applicant, is alternative option number 2, is that the original location?
I think so.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, it is.
And you said based on the photo that we're seeing now, that's at the point of the building where the siding stops and the brick starts?
Approximately, yes.
Did they never just ask to have the fence replaced where it was already?
I'm sorry.
In the original application, did they never just say, can we replace our fence with 1 foot higher?
That was not the initial proposal. The initial proposal was to bring the fence all the way across the front of the secondary structure to meet the back corner of the property they own.
Is there anybody who'd like to speak against the application? I saw you waiting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Debbie Blackburn, property owner on Northwest 22nd and Heritage Hills East.
And also sign in.
And I would back up the staff recommendation that putting the fence in front of the property would not be historically correct. As you discussed earlier, if it's disappeared, in the meantime, you need to go back with the original structure or type of material. And I would just add that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. More comments? These photographs plan don't jive. Is there a motion?
So by following staff's recommendation and approving with the unique... No, wait. Hang on.
Got something?
I move to deny HPCA 14-00096. And how do I do that? By saying, going back to what we originally approved? Okay, so just denying this applicant.
I guess we're denying the amendment to the CA?
Correct.
They deny the amendment to HPCA, da-da-da-da-da.
Correct. Thank you. Without prejudice, with specific finding that the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property, is not consistent with the provisions of the guidelines, and is not in compliance with the relevant sections of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in the specific findings. I would say not. Yes, in the specific findings. Would I need to specifically call out the ones that are because it's a...
Yes, if there's ones that you don't want to have included, you can just say excluding specific findings 1, 3, and 5 or whatever.
I would want to take out everything but 7, that the guidelines do not support front yard fences that cannot be determined as historic locations.
Okay.
Correct? I'm looking at my...
Yeah. Just trying to see the picture. This is teamwork here.
Including section, and to include section 2.8.8, fences shall be located behind any open front porch of a main building and the open front porch of the main building of any adjacent property.
Second. Okay, it's been moved by Jennifer Bourne, and second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The item is denied. Next case.
HPCA 14-00122 at 438 Northwest 35th Street, Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Denise D'Amico by Russell Fox for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace and regrade driveway with curb, elective. The Commission heard this application last month and asked for some additional documentation of the proposed changes to the driveway. We do have, I think, better drawings of the proposed change in the slope to the driveway, but we did receive comments from the neighborhood expressing concern that there's not an accurate drawing of the proposed curb or retaining wall to go along one side, and that's accurate.
That's exactly what I was going to comment on, that I think, was it Russell that came in before?
I'm here.
Oh, hi.
Yes, the applicant is present.
Okay. He had a drawing last time that kind of showed a little bit more of what it was going to look like, and that was where we were concerned about it because there was such a difference. And I think in one of his drawings, page 205, he does show it, I think, a little bit more accurately, but it still doesn't show what it's actually going to look like, and I'm afraid it's going to look like a retaining wall instead of just a gentle slope. And without that graphic, I don't know how to make a decision.
Can I get it here? Sure.
Yes.
All right. It's mostly, I'm the owner, it's mostly a safety issue for me, besides the fact that there's big, gigantic, gaping holes that if it's the least bit wet, rainy, snowy, windy, whatever, I'm taking my life in my hands to empty my garbage can. And all I wanted to do was to repave the driveway to make it look a whole lot better. I understood that you have to put a particular dye so it looks old, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to even leave the dangerous slope if that's what it takes. But Russell, I paid him to come here and do this. Obviously, he gave me the impression he knew what he was doing, and I didn't know there was a problem. He comes back to me and he says, well, they want to not alter it so much. I went, whatever they want, I will do, because it's been years. I really am dying to fix that driveway. It looks horrible. It's dangerous. I'm only getting older by the second. It's like I need to fix the driveway. It's common sense to me. And on either side of me, right and left, the owners of those driveways, it's a slightly gentler slope. I don't know the exact language or the exact dimensions. The reason I hired him was because he said he had dealt with that before and he knew how to propose it. I don't even know exactly how you propose it, and when he told me the retaining wall, I also had to say, well, what does that mean? We talked to our neighbor. They said they were fine as long as they didn't incur any costs. And so we just said, well, I said, why do we need a retaining wall? And he explained it to me. I don't think I could explain it because I don't really understand it. All I know is if it was just a tiny bit less of not going so abruptly down, it would be safer, and I think it would look just like my neighbors on either side. I really am baffled by the major concern of this. I mean, I would like anybody to to like who thinks it's not dangerous to go empty my garbage can for me, because I'm not kidding, every time I do it, I'm practically falling, and it's very, very dangerous. It scrapes my car every single time I go up and down. It's a safety issue, and it's not going to look any different from what my neighbors have on either side of me, and I just don't understand why it's an issue. I just don't.
After reading the letter, it appears that there is not a curb included in the new proposal.
The what?
I mean, there's, in the letter of August 11th,
Page 5?
page 5, it does not mention a curb on this one, so it appears that, that's my understanding, between that and the picture, that he was just describing the 30%, just using the ground, but there's no curb.
When you carve that, when you need to carve that much away,
It'll just be another gentle slope. I mean, it's like mine goes,
right?
I have no gentle slope. It's like, it goes up
As
like
long
that.
as it's not concrete, and that's what we want to make sure that it's not. That is
Right.
very different than
the curb.
Yeah.
I had made a comment, and it looks like you've addressed it, so just want to say that. To me, the top part of your driveway next to your house needs to have a place to park a car that's pretty level. You don't want to park on a slope. So it looks like you've done that. So if the upper level section of the driveway on your diagram on page 4 was around 20 feet, essentially fairly flat, that would, to me, help quite a bit. The other one seemed like it sloped all the way up to the steps. I'm just saying. So if that area was flat where you could park a car next to your house, it would
Right.
be more like the other houses, I think.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've never measured it. I don't know exactly what it is, and I didn't trust that I would be able to accurately measure it.
well,
And
you can have your contractor do that. I'm just saying that
I
one,
don't have a contractor because my concern was I don't want to hire somebody only to be not approved. And I went, well, I have to get it approved to even get somebody out there that knows how to do it, and I don't even, know how to do it. And so I thought, well, once I'm approved, I could say, okay, this is what you need to do. And that was my understanding, and that's why I even had somebody else represent me, because I knew I would never be able to explain it
well,
mathematically.
he couldn't necessarily speak for you, so that's, your diagram to me, looks to me like this is the slope part, this is the flat part.
Okay.
To me, that's acceptable, and this is the berm. And then you need to transition to the...
I mean, whatever is going to be acceptable is what I want to do, and I want to repave it because, I mean, there's a big hole right now.
I understand. So my objection was the slope continued too far back. This looks like it's better to me.
Yeah, I think the new profile looks acceptable. I think the curb and retaining wall have been eliminated, if I understand correctly. And so I think that fits within the guidelines. The slope still mimics the roll up the rolling terrace like it should. It's not quite as severe. So that means that the lawns on either side will warp slightly to meet the new driveway without a curb or without a retaining wall. To me, that sounds like an acceptable solution.
There was one other thing we talked about, and that's the S-curve. Instead of coming in straight up and flat, we want it to sort of roll.
And it does. It does.
Right now, the way it is, you go up the thing, and then there's a flat area.
Yeah.
And that's how it is right now. And that's how it was when I bought it.
Yeah. Usually it rolls a little bit. It's not a shrug.
But it's flat where my car is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. She's got it flat. It's not a straight run from the street all the way up to the front porch. It has a roll up to it, creates your flat spot at the top. I was good with that.
Okay.
Ready?
Does anyone else have any question or comment?
I move to approve HPCA. Are we ready? I'm sorry. Did you want to go ahead?
Do we have a motion? Jeff just took over. Motion along, okay. In your motion.
Okay. I move to approve HPCA 14-00122. Item 1, with unique circumstances with the specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property, that the following unique circumstances exist, that the items do not strictly comply with all relevant guidelines, I'm not sure if that's, or not addressed in them, but are nevertheless consistent with the spirit and intent of the guidelines and in compliance with the relevant sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C and or D of the staff report, with the unique circumstances that the slope of the driveway will be altered but will still be within the range of the slope of the rolling terrace of the block, and that the reduced slope of the driveway is necessary for continued use and accessibility of the property. Can I add one more?
You can do what you want.
That it is not approved to add curbs or retaining walls as part of this application.
I just want the slope to be a tiny bit less treacherous.
Yep. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham and second by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. All right, next item.
HPCA 14-00150 at 825 Northwest 15th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Tom Ward by J.P. Craig for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, replace historic steel casement windows, elective. The Commission heard this last month. The applicant submitted additional documentation of the condition of the windows. We also included in the staff report a publication from the National Park Service on evaluating, repairing steel casement windows. The applicant has said that the historic steel casement windows appear to have been welded shut, are not operable. It's difficult to tell from the photos how much they're welded or corroded versus just layers and layers of paint on them. The windows definitely look to be in decent condition as far as structurally. You know, they're not bowing, they're not visibly corroded, there's not broken glass, panes falling out, right. So I don't know if there's more information that the Commission thinks would be helpful, and I don't know what lengths we expect an applicant to go to disassemble and repair and replace windows that are not operable to get them into an operable condition. And I don't see the applicant here this afternoon.
Is there representing the applicant? No? Okay. Anybody opposing this application? Any?
Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel. Ken and I were just talking, and we think we saw some of those windows open this week. So it might be interesting to see if they found out more about them. And it seems like if they are salvageable, we support staff's opinion that the original windows stay in the house. So that's, I think, all I can add to the knowledge that we have about the windows.
So the applicant states they're welded shut. Is there any way
they were not, I don't think that they were, it said not as likely even to be welded shut, but painted shut, could have used adhesive, but most likely, and actually I did make I talked to Harry Sims at the Preservation Office. He did actually say that paint could have that same effect, in his opinion, of, you know, you paint them, just the moisture of the paint, everything can actually make the windows where they're not operable. But
like rust could even, I mean, can that part of that too? I mean, in an aging process?
Right, they get rusty and then people paint over them and because they won't open. Tough one. I was just going to say, WD-40.
We had definitely a picture of all of the hinges, pretty much. Any comments? If there was any way to test it, kind of going on.
We did talk with them about, because they were approved to replace a couple of historic windows on the back of the house where they're altering the kitchen.
Yeah.
And we said, maybe since you're removing those windows anyway, do a little
Test.
deconstruction there and see what happens. See if you can get them open, see if you can get the paint off, whatever. But hadn't gotten any documentation of them from that. I don't know if they maybe just aren't ready to move forward with that part of the project yet, and I'm sure they don't want to leave, big gaping holes in the house.
The other thought was maybe, all of the windows on the front of the house, on the first floor, are original, except for the windows on the west end. I don't know if there's any other windows that are those exact same size that could be perhaps used in that just one situation, and then maybe the side and the rear windows replaced or something. I don't know. I think it's difficult, but I will say again, I think that when you can't get them to open, my question for them today would have been, could you just explain how far you went into, or what did you do to see if you could repair them? Is there somebody here in Oklahoma City that is qualified to repair this kind of window?
Okay. So, is there a motion? More comments?
What is the percentage of the windows that were replaced?
So every window on the second floor has been replaced at some point.
And they're metal also?
They are a variety of materials, and we've already approved them to go back with new steel casement windows in those locations. And then
With what? I can't remember what.
steel casement windows in those locations. And then on the first floor, the front east side and the east elevation are the historic windows, and I believe some around the back as well. And then on the west side, there are later replacement windows.
Would the new windows on the first floor help give a consistency to the whole house?
The intent is that the replacement windows that will go in on the second floor and on the west side will very closely replicate the historic windows. So I know, that's one thing that the applicant had kind of raised, was trying to have it be consistent, all the windows match, but as we do with every window replacement, the intent is that we approve replacement windows that exactly replicate the historic, so you can't tell the difference.
Right.
Does the width of the divider?
It's not exact, it's pretty close.
Pretty close, like
They are doing thermal pane, so it's a little bit,
a little fatter?
a little thicker.
This is coming before.
Yeah.
Width of the divider. Okay.
So I'm ready to move denial unless we think that a continuance would help, if we have that option to us, if that would help anything.
Given that they're not here, I'm kind of surprised that they're not here.
Yeah, I am too.
I would be inclined to recommend continuing it just to give them one more opportunity.
Right. Given that the evidence that I see here isn't compelling to approve it, I'm going to deny it unless, so I think continuing it would be appropriate as well to the October meeting, probably?
October 1st.
The October 1st docket. Move to continue.
Second.
Been moved by Jeff Parks, seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, item is continued. Case is continued. Next case.
HPCA 14-00162 at 100 Northwest 22nd Street, Heritage Hills, I just lost my place. Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application of Redbud Inc. for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove fence elective. This is an application item that absolutely meets guidelines for administrative approval. It is a chain link fence in the middle of 2 vacant lots. There was concern from surrounding neighbors about the removal of the fence, and more specifically about removal of the trees that have grown into the fence. And so we talked with the neighbor, we talked with the applicant, and they agreed to let it come to the commission so that they could have their opportunity to speak about it. Just to clarify, no CA is required for removal of trees. The CA is only for the fence, but the trees just happen to be intertwined with the fence. So I think we've got a couple of people here that wanted to speak on this one.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Hello, Sherry Pemberton, homeowner at 110 Northwest 22nd Street, just to the west of these properties. We talked about this when the demolition crew was out there, and I think that when it first started, the city didn't understand that these trees have grown so that the fence is literally, like you say, intertwined. And considering that it's up for sale, you know, you can't tear the fence down without tearing the trees down. And so just to maintain its value as a historic preservation property, I would hope that the fence stays for now and that the trees definitely stay. I don't know what else to say except that it's sort of piecemealing itself away, and it's hard to watch, especially if you start tearing down those trees. I really think we're going to have an ecological effect. I think we're going to have a wind tunnel coming down to, I'm right at the end of the row there. When you tore down those two houses, that was bad enough. It didn't fix the problems that you wanted to fix. And if they tear down the trees, it's just going to be one more devastating blow to that area. So I really hope you'll consider not approving this. Thank you. Sign in.
Thank you. Any comments, Commissioner? Debbie? You may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't need to go over this too much more, and I know this is very unusual. You're talking about why not take that down, but this property is for sale, and it has had interested buyers. And you know that the houses on it went down against your wishes and our wishes. My question is, why would the property owner, the current property owner, when he has it for sale and it has to go residential, want to expend money on tearing down something that ultimately could be used by someone who is going to redevelop it as single family or as residential again, rather than, and the property owner is not here, so I would just ask you to, I know this is odd, it's odd that you have to talk about tearing down trees, but you're talking about tearing down the fence and the trees go with it. It is very possible that, as the neighbor just said, whoever develops that for residential again would kind of like to have some of those older trees and the fence. And since the property owner is not here, does have it on the market, has had interested buyers, this is odd, and I really didn't know if I was going to be here today, but I just ask you to consider that. Why? Why? Thank you.
Okay.
I can't tell if it's a situation where the fence could be repaired and save the trees by a new owner. It looks impossible to save this fence. I don't know anything about fencing.
Yeah, from the, I mean, it's just a chain link fence. I'm sure that you could make some repairs and patch it here and there. It doesn't appear to be in great condition. I don't know that even if a new owner were going to come in and do, I think if someone was going to come in and build new houses on these lots, they would want a nice new fence in this location. As far as the trees, I absolutely understand the concern and that the trees serve a purpose right now and are a buffer, but what it really comes down to as far as our purview is we don't have the ability to regulate removal of trees. I mean, people could cut down every tree in Heritage Hills East and we have no say in it. It's not our ability to regulate that. So, they're kind of intertwined just because of how they've grown into the fence, but I don't know that there's a whole lot we can do from the perspective of considering the trees.
Could we suggest that they carefully demo I've put this in my drawings before. Carefully demo the existing fence, with trying to preserve as many trees as possible.
We can certainly make the recommendation or the encouragement that as much, mature landscaping is preserved as possible with the removal of the fence. So.
Well, it says the row of trees that grow into this existing chain link fence is proposed to be removed in order to clear the site. They plan on clearing the site completely?
I mean,
I just wondered, because you said that in here, they did.
Yeah.
So.
May I speak between? My concern is that this property is being piecemealed until it has no other purpose but to be just dozed over and turned into business, commercial area. If there's nothing there, if there's not the fence there, if there's not the trees there, what's to stop anyone from building whatever they want on there? But it's historic, and the trees are historic, and that's my concern. They're going to come in and say, oh, but we have permission to tear down the fence. Well, oops, can't tear down the fence without tearing down the trees. And again, the value to a residential property is that it has established landscaping. The trees are as old, they're 100-year-old trees. So if you start tearing down the fence, you can't help but tear down the trees with it. So I don't think you can kind of snip and tear down a little bit at a time. I think you just, once you start going, the whole thing is going to go down. So that's my concern. I don't want to see it piecemealed. I want to see it remain as an established residential historic property.
And they did apply for rezoning for this property to make it commercial, and that was denied. Right. So they would have to go through that whole process all over again if they wanted to do anything here other than single-family residential. So I understand that concern, but just so you know, no matter what happens today with this site, they're not going to be able to come back a month from now or 6 months from now and just sneak in with a 7-Eleven. They're going to have to, they would have to go through that whole.
I'm kind of like Debbie. Why? The property is up for sale. What's the purpose of, if someone put in an offer, they would be putting in an offer as is. This is what I want to buy. And so until something is done with this property, why tear down the fence? Why snip at the fence and get the trees while you're at it? So it's bizarre to us. So.
And we often get all sorts of applications that we think, why are you doing this? But, we get applications for various odd things, but if it meets the guidelines, we can't not approve something just because we think it's not a good idea. Even if it's something that we wouldn't recommend a property owner do, or it's a waste of money, or it's a waste of time, or whatever, if it meets the guidelines, we have to allow it to go forward.
My belief is that it will affect the property, and that's, bottom line, that's it. I think it will affect the property, and I think it will affect the block. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any more comments, Commission? Any motion?
Well, yeah, I would just add on to that. I mean, this parcel or these parcels have been, very high on this Commission's radar for some time. They're very visible, and they provide basically a front door to Heritage Hills East, and so that's very important. And I think anything that happens on them will of course, undergo the scrutiny of staff and commission as it works its way through whatever the process is. That being said, there's really nothing in the guidelines and standards that would prevent us from not approving this application. And I can have my sheet back on that motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get that for some reason in my packet.
I would move to approve HPCA 14-00162 with specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
A second.
Okay, it's moved by Jeff Park, second by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not opposed. Did you want to include the encouragement to retain future landscaping where possible?
I would add that encouragement to the property owner to maintain as many of the trees as is
Do we have to do
possible.
this officially in some way?
removal.
Where's that?
That's a part of the motion, and that it's reported that way. It'll be a part of the CA.
I second that.
All right.
I hope they do it.
The case approved with condition, or not condition, but recommendation. Okay.
HPCA 14-00165 at 812 Northwest 41st Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Patrick and Kay Wheeler for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct back porch with modified bitumen roof, elective. 2, convert existing window to sliding patio doors, elective. 3, convert existing back door to full-length window, elective. 4, construct bar area at porch, elective. And 10, install fence, required. This is an application that in large part was approved previously, and the work was just not completed before the CA had expired. The one item that was not approved previously and that does not currently meet the guidelines is the height of the fence along the side yard.
Part of the side yard.
Part of this, yeah, the back corner.
So are you the applicant?
I am the applicant, Patrick Wheeler.
Okay. Can you sign in, please? Yeah. Any comments, questions? George, Joe? Or disarray over on this side? So everything's been approved except number 10?
Well, the CA has expired, so we have to take action on all of it again, but it was all approved
It was previously?
previously.
Except for the height of the fence?
The fence was not part of the original application, and I erroneously constructed the fence without approval. And so when I had to come back and get approval, get a new application for the main part of the project, the patio, I included the application for the permission with the fence that is already constructed. And really to define the fence where it's non-compliant, I think it's on, I don't know if you have this page, that one right there, and it's hard to see, but the fence extends, so that's the west boundary of my backyard, and it extends about 90 feet, the west boundary. It's about 61 feet, which is compliant, is about 5 feet 10 inches. The back boundary of my yard, or the south boundary of my yard, is at 7 feet, which is in compliance. The issue, and I don't know if you can see from that, it's about 30 feet where it extends, 7 feet taller. Just, I felt like the transition looked better. It kind of kept my 12-year-old's balls in the backyard a lot better, and it screened off very loud pool equipment right there at my neighbor's corner.
So how tall is the fence ahead of that?
5 feet 10 inches.
5 foot 10,
yeah.
which is okay.
Right.
And so it's that transition, it's that 30 feet we're talking about.
Yeah, there's
right?
30 feet that's 7 feet. I will mention that, within Crown Heights, I mean, I drove 4 blocks. There's 22 non-compliant, in excess of 3 feet, 6 feet fences, which are visible from the street. This area of issue is not visible. I don't want to say it's totally not visible from the street, but it's very difficult to see it from the street. And like I said, I would argue with about 400 homes, there's probably 15% of the homes have non-compliant.
Unfortunately, we have to take yours individually.
I understand.
What's the reason why it's taller, to screen?
Well, I felt like it screened, the noise from a little bit. I mean, I think it just transitions better. It is behind my neighbor's garage where it begins, that issue of the 7-foot fence. It's not a big deal. I mean, I just think it looks a lot better. I don't think it has any historical implications which would be detrimental. I mean, I think there is precedent of allowing slightly taller fences in some areas. And, I don't see the implication of where, 1 foot, I mean, my back fence could be 8 feet is my understanding. It's 7. I just felt like the transition of it was a little bit, it was more attractive.
You don't get credit for the 7 feet. Okay. So it looks like that jog that kind of lines with your neighbor's, the back of your neighbor's garage.
That's correct.
More or less. I don't know why, but okay. And that's where your pool equipment is?
It's actually the abutting to what would be the southwest corner, so my abutting neighbor that is on the north side of 40th Street is actually where that pool equipment is.
Right. Okay. Any questions? Site plan does not show that corner.
I guess I just have a question for the staff. Like for the new covered patio, I think you have in here that it's not visible from the public right-of-way. And I guess looking at the proposed site plan, I don't see how it's not visible from the public right-of-way. Maybe I'm just not getting it.
I think if you extended east from there, it would be slightly visible, albeit you kind of need to be walking into my backyard.
Yeah. Do what? Yeah. I think if you were way far over to the side, you might be able to see.
I don't mean to be a jerk. We say not seen from the public right-of-way, and I think if there's any way to see it, it's quite huge.
You're accurate that it is visible from the public right-of-way. That was a misstatement by myself. This photograph that is on the screen right now, you can see the corner of the existing roof to some extent. It's going to be in approximately that same location. So it will be more visible than initially anticipated.
So that jog is 5'10" to 7 feet, so 1 foot 2 inches difference? Is that right? Is that 7 feet there?
Roughly, I can tell you exactly what it is.
Looks like
The west boundary extension of this is page 23 of 30. I don't know if you have this document. It was submitted by staff. But the west boundary extension of the fence is 5 feet 7 inches in height for 52 and a half feet.
There it is, okay.
Okay, and then it extends, increases to 7 feet. That includes the top cap for 31 and a half feet.
Thank you. Okay.
Is that the back of the garage in this photo we're looking at right there, going back to the patio? Is that the back of the garage?
My garage or?
Yours.
That's the front of my garage and my quarters room.
That's quarters room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's looking southwesterly.
Okay.
So that's my neighbor's garage. They're on the west side of my property.
Okay.
They're on the right, top right of that picture.
Okay, do we have a motion or more comments?
I have no problem with approving the stuff that we approved last time. I'm having trouble finding the justification.
He's got a good precedent for that.
Yes, he does. He does. I think it is minimally visible from the right-of-way, even if you can sneak a peek at it from a certain angle. I'm having trouble finding a justification for the step in the fence on the side. Trying to think of something that we've done before. Sometimes it's for grade changes or other unique circumstances that allow us to do that, and I can't think of anything that this one captures that lets us do that. Anyone else?
I have more problems with our area, but
yet?
I wasn't on the commission when it was approved, so.
Well, so what? You're pointing that out. So you have a motion, Jeff? or-
Yeah, I would move to approve HPCA 14-00165, items 1 through 4, to construct the back porch addition with lighting and fan and bar area, and to convert the window to patio doors and convert the door to window.
Okay, items 1 through 4.
Yes.
Is there a second? Okay, it's moved by Jeff Parker, second by Joe Meacham. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Items 1 through 4 are approved.
And then item 10, the fence, other than we can continue to look for a unique circumstance.
Would you like to have a
You can continue and then work with the applicant to get an administrative approval if they alter it to meet the guidelines.
Gotcha. Instead of
If I could make a request, what's the commission's policy with regards to enforcement of fence violations in the neighborhood?
Commission's policy, it's an ordinance. But
It's part of city code. There are code enforcement officers that go out and inspect. A lot of those are in response to people calling in and reporting.
Right.
Or a lot of times, if you've gotten a CA or a permit for something else, and the inspector comes out to inspect that permit and sees that a fence that's not compliant, then it'll get noticed.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So would you like to continue?
Yeah, I'd like to continue the fence. I mean, I'll show up and...
To October? Is there a motion?
If we're going to work for administrative approval, we might just continue it to the November meeting, just to
But
give
will I get
plenty of time.
my CA as far as on the other issues, so I can start my project?
Right.
Because I
We
mean,
can start
at
the
the end of the
rest of
day, it's cutting 30 square feet of cedar off of a fence.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you.
We'll work it out.
Do you know the November date?
5th,
5th? Okay, November 5th.
I move to continue item number 10 to the November 5th docket.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Jeff Park, seconded by Jennifer Warren. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, continued. Item 10. Thank you.
Because we do not have a quorum for item 8, we won't be able to take any action on that, so it's not continued, it's just no action taken, and that'll go to the October 1st meeting. 9, HPCA 14-00175 at 623 Northwest 14th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application of Diane and Terry Hunter for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct front porch cover with lighting, elective, and 2, install front porch columns, elective. This is a house that we have documentation that the front porch was removed at some time, quite a few years ago, and they would like to reconstruct a front porch.
Porch cover. Is the applicant present? No? Not able to be here?
Pretty familiar with this particular property. I think it'd be a tremendous enhancement to bring it back with this front porch myself.
Terry did come to our Heritage Hills Design Review Committee meeting last month, and we went through the plans with him, and he'd done a lot of research, and he's a school teacher. He teaches art. So we spent a lot of time going over things with him. I don't know if I can answer any questions or not, but I did talk to him about it, and I know he came up and talked to Katie and Angela about it, and so I'm sure it had a front porch when it was built. He couldn't find any photographic evidence of it, but he did find some evidence on the site that there was a porch, so that's his best understanding of what it could have looked like. We know it's not exact, but we think it's appropriate for his house, but I'm sure that he would appreciate any input that you all have on it.
I have a question. It says match the soffits, use plywood ceiling, but on the photograph of the soffit, it looks like that it's actually a beadboard ceiling.
And I think we talked about beadboard.
They are going to use siding in the soffits everywhere except the front porch, because everywhere except the front porch, there is lap siding inside the soffits. The front porch, he's going to use just plain plywood. That is the proposal.
Right. I mean, why, and what is I guess I don't understand. Why isn't the porch ceiling going to match the soffits?
With lap siding?
Is it lap siding that I'm seeing in the photograph?
It is lap siding
Yeah.
in the soffits.
But they don't want to use that on the
They don't
ceiling.
want to use that for the porch. It'll be more difficult to install the lighting and fans and that sort of thing if they attempt lap siding for such a large area.
Okay.
I had a question about the column material. Is it, they've pointed out the neighbor's fiberglass column, and I see a photo of the column they intend to use, but I'm not sure what material they're proposing that column to be.
Fiberglass.
Have we approved fiberglass columns?
Yes. In 2 instances, both locations were locations where water stood fairly constantly.
Yeah.
And both applicants were able to indicate that water does stand in those locations constantly. However, with the changes to the guidelines, it now indicates that on occasion fiberglass columns may be appropriate for front locations.
Okay.
It does say may.
Okay. Because it used to be kind of a very much a no thing.
Do we know which column there's 2, there's one on 19 and one on 20? 2 different caps.
I think they're proposing the one on, now that I say that, I think this is the proposed column and cap.
We have an Empire cap on this,
And that's the base in the column.
that's only the base. And then this other's on the top.
And that's intended to match the trim over the entrance to the house.
We talked about that, and I told Terry I would defer to you all on that, but what I've observed is that usually the porch columns were not as ornate as the columns around the entry, and so that he might consider making those as important as they would be if they were replicas of the ones around the door. But I told him that I would defer to you all on that, but I think that that would be something that he would consider if you all wanted to ask that.
Well, I don't have a few comments. One, I think it looks good proportionally and concept. And I know the staff report says that measurements are going to be submitted, but there's very few dimensions. And I feel a little uncomfortable with that. Just shows an overall width. I guess the walls and steps are already there, so it's an existing condition. It does have the roof slope on it. just seems like there's a few too many missing dimensions. What do you guys think? Feel more comfortable about it than I do? The plan, I would like to see the dimension that against existing column bases, so I guess he's centering those on top of the existing base. But
Are you talking yourself out of it?
I'm talking both sides there. I'd like to see more dimensions, but I don't want to hold it up. I think it's,
Does staff feel comfortable with, what they would be submitting to them?
I have already spoken with the applicant over the telephone this past weekend and gotten the dimensions that are necessary for completing those drawings. And I apologize if I did not get my notes into your staff report, but we do have complete dimensions on all elements. So if there's anything specifically that I can attempt to recall to assist with that, Alan, I'd be happy to.
Well, it'd be nice to have it in our packet to review, but if everybody feels comfortable with it, I think it looks good. Just because we put some people through the ringer sometimes on dimensions.
I put him through the ringer too, I promise.
And this is going on the existing base of the front porch, so a lot of those dimensions are already established when you think about the spacing and the columns.
It is hard to distinguish between what is existing and what is not. I can do it, but could be, I don't know. But, I feel comfortable with it if the rest of the commission does.
Okay, so is there a motion?
Did you have something? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I move to approve HPCA 14-00175, all items, to construct porch roof with columns with the specific findings that the proposed column design matches the design of the pilasters, that the proposed material meets the criteria of the guidelines, if indistinguishable from the appearance of the pilasters, that missing dimensions will be documented with staff prior to release of certificate, and they potentially have already been given to staff. And with the agreed upon conditions, will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property. The items comply with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Jennifer Board, second by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, approved with additions.
HPCA 14-00179 at 911 Northwest 19th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of David DeWitt for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove paving and level site elective, 2, construct house elective, 3, construct garage elective, and 4, install driveway elective.
Okay, applicant present? It is.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I'm David DeWitt, the applicant. I reside at 901 Northwest 22nd Street, Apartment B, 2 blocks away, Mesta Park. I have some additional documents. Can I pass them around the horseshoe? Angela? Am I free to give an introduction of the project, or do y'all like to just go over the staff's comments?
I think you could introduce it.
Okay.
While everyone looks over the materials.
Excellent. Well, the property is on the periphery of Mesta Park, at the last block before we go commercial. But it's a beautiful block with a lot of 2-story homes with prairie and craftsman style features. There is actually some architectural variety on the block. There is a 3-story Spanish influenced craftsman prairie type home. There's a Tudor home. Across the street from this house there is a house built in the 1980s. It's a 1-story mock bungalow, and then 2 houses to the east, there is a new construction that, on the screen now, is sort of a sleek craftsman bungalow. The proposal is a brick craftsman, which I acknowledge is not the predominant style on the street, but it is common in Mesta Park and throughout this historic area, Mesta Park, Heritage Hills, and Heritage Hills East. In my additional information, I provided some samples of that. The closest one is a block and a half away. It's a 2-story red brick craftsman duplex. And then one is on the 500 block of 21st Street. It's actually in the HP guidelines, and it's a 2-story brick craftsman. And I know that the brick craftsman is not the predominant style on the street, but all the other brick craftsmen stand individually amongst lap siding houses or other designs, and I think that they blend in well, and it works well in the neighborhood. In our design of the building, we stuck with some dominant craftsman features: the rafter tails, the gable, the porch columns, brick and wood combination, and some featured details. We have 24-inch overhang on the rafter tails, and on the overhang over the gable, we wanted those dominant features, not for the building to be skinnied up. Well, that's the background on the building, and if I could address some of the issues that staff had brought up. One of the first ones is the material recommended. It's a red king-size brick. The brick size, I couldn't find it addressed in the HP guidelines. It is common in the area, or there are many examples in the area. Don't have an architectural eye, but afternoons with a ruler, I found about 5 to 7 houses with king-size brick. And in my perception, they weren't disruptive to my experience of that street or to the historic area. And one of those houses with king-size brick is across the street, and another is a new building, the one on 21st Street I mentioned, that is in the HP guidelines. And while king-size brick is not mentioned, there is an item in the HP guidelines, section 4.2.8, that while architectural styles should be copied or replicated, you should not use the exact same materials so that the old versus new structures could be differentiated. And maybe king-size brick fits that feature, but another consideration is that it is not amongst houses that are made of brick, so when one viewed it, they would not see that the brick is necessarily different than the historic material. We felt it was important to be a 2-story structure, to have a kind of a common harmonious view, front elevation down the street. An issue that staff pointed out is that the second story does not span the entire footprint of the building. It is only 16 feet deep. And the way we ended up at this, and staff's comments are that it's too narrow or that it's a pop-up second story. And the way we ended up with this is that we just need 600 square feet on the second story as part of a floor plan. And so the options were to have a pop-up bungalow with it running north-south, but we felt it was more important to have the solid front facade. And the pop-up second stories are not uncommon. The 2 houses to the east, 905 19th, is second story only on the front half of the building. And there are other pop-up bungalows in the neighborhood. One in my supporting documents was 326 22nd Street, and its second story is only 15 feet deep. And when I view it's a corner lot, when you view it from the sides, my perspective is not visually disruptive by any means. And this building, you have a 16-foot second story, and compared to the house down the street, that's about 31% of the ground floor length, comparable to 905. And for the one on 22nd Street, that house is 33%. Second story to first story. And compared to the house to east of us, 905, our 2-story facade would be a little bit more muted because we would have the 9-foot deep front porch. So when you view it from the side, it's not front heavy about to tip over. It has that balance from the porch. Another one of staff's concerns was the window-to-wall ratio, and you'll notice that when you view the east and west elevations, And the background for that is, well, I know you're not interested in the interiors, but what satisfies our floor plan best. And on both sides, the windows stop at about 50% down the building, or 26 feet from the front edge of the building. And I understand staff's point, but I would argue, or I would implore you to consider that the front of the building is the main experience for the pedestrian traveling through the historic area, and the further down the side elevation would be more secondary and not dominant to the experience. Additionally, since it would be brick, you wouldn't have white trim to be able to truly designate the windows. It would be more of a shadow box when viewed obliquely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the third floor here in the front, that's not usable space?
No, sir. That's just the attic, and we put in a window. It's common on the street. I think some of them may be finished. I'm not sure.
Comments?
Could you talk a little bit about the shutters? Those aren't necessarily a bungalow feature.
That's right. The shutters are decorative. They're common in the area. Staff, they point out that since back then they didn't install things that weren't functional, so they probably were installed later. It's merely a decorative addition. And in the thought that the second story is too bulky or busy, as was in the staff report, we would consider removing some of the shutters.
Then, could you maybe further explain on when you look at this, when you look at most of the houses in the area, we're totally window heavy.
Yes.
The sides of bungalows and everything, we usually have 40 windows. We have we have so many windows. And it just looks like, looking at your side views, that there's just so few windows.
Is that beyond the 25-foot mark?
We're reviewing the entire house, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
But just both side views just appear to have so few windows.
Well, on the
yes. Can you talk a little bit? What is behind? Is it a garage or something? What is behind there?
On the west side, that's the master. It's a long master closet. Then the east side is a wall of cabinets in the kitchen.
Okay.
And as for the second story, it does just have one window. That really is the common feature of second-story bedrooms on the street. The house is I provide this in the additional documentation. The house to the east has one window on the second-story bedroom on one side. Another bedroom is entirely windowless. And then the house to the west has just one window on the side of the second-story bedroom. Additionally, down on 905 19th, they also have one window on the west side of the second story.
And I think you've done a great job of finding, areas that have all of these things, but I think that there's also a concern of actually putting them all together and not just justifying one. This one is good because there's just a whole bunch of ones. There's a whole bunch of double windows too. There's both sides of the story on each one of your on one of your ideas.
Yes.
I still have a big concern on the windows because we specifically say in the guidelines that, that the pattern of the openings should be compatible. And I don't think that we're just addressing the front of the house, or because we just told a gentleman before you that we could see 90 feet into his backyard and made him change his fence. So we do take in consideration what we can see from the sidewalk back into the house. And I have a fear that you would be walking down the sidewalk and you would just see, not only is it brick, which I think I'm in agreement with the staff, it's a very heavy material and it would be very dark. It's just, you might be disappointed in the end that it looks like a big side of an apartment building that doesn't have windows because of the way it's designed inside. I feel like that is going to have a tremendous effect on the person walking down the sidewalk when they view the side of the buildings.
Well, we can add windows to those stretches.
Does that make sense to you that it is not like the other houses in the neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Okay. I still do. I'm in agreement with the staff that the front does appear a little short. You know, you brought in a great perspective today of the house, but when you look at it, I mean, of course, perspectives are deceiving, but it looks, you know, it makes the pop-up, as you call it, I'm not, seem much bigger in the perspective than actually looking at it. I do have another concern that when you're walking down the sidewalk and you just see that short amount of a house in a two-story fashion, that it's, again, you might be disappointed in how that looks. Because that's going to be very clear. I mean, even in other districts where there's different house forms that have, you know, a bigger portion of the roof on the front, and then in the back have a smaller portion, but yours is kind of the reverse of that. It just, it appears maybe it might just seem like a little, like a, I don't know how to describe it, but
well, it's kind of a Western storefront almost. I mean, it's a
Some-
very
it's just
shallow
right.
depth. It's very big, and I think there are several kind of issues and concerns with the overall design, but I think the biggest one is just the overall shape of the structure itself, and that very shallow, very large second-story portion. And you brought in the example of the pop-up at 326 Northwest 22nd Street as kind of something similar. And I don't disagree that there are some very similar forms between what you proposed and it, but I think that there are also details in that kind of airplane pop-up that make it feel much different than what you've proposed. Here, where that two-story mass reads as a true two-story mass instead of a single-story building with a small area that is indeed popped up, so to speak.
Well, they're really two different styles. That's
Well, they are.
Airplane, that's the bungalow. So.
Right.
And the roof form is turned 90 degrees. The
Yes.
gable runs east-west or lateral instead of.
Exactly,
So
and it's got a hip around the entire second floor of the airplane.
So it kind of accentuates the, if there's a gable on the end of the pop-up, it would probably not appear to be as
large. Right, yeah.
Well, Mr. Parks, would it be appropriate for this lot to have the second story turned, imagine it's still a rectangle, turned so it runs north-south? We just have to change the architectural style. Or then we may be in the similar situation with a pop-up on one side.
I think those might be viable alternatives.
Depends how it works out.
Right. I don't know that you necessarily have to have an entire two-story, two-and-a-half-story front-facing, street-facing elevation or facade. And I don't deny that, you know, just looking at the elevation of what you've submitted it's not a bad thing. It's nice. There are some details, again, that we might want to talk about and walk through. But once you kind of get off of that front elevation, things really don't hold up very well as far as fitting in with the district as a whole.
And Mr. Parks, if we were to continue having a solid front face, how deep would it need to be, do you think, to satisfy or to remove this feeling of a pop-up second story? I'm seeking advice now.
To me, it's the form. From the front, you've got a 2.5-story house. From the side, it's 1.5. I mean, it's like two different houses jammed together. It seems like it ought to look like a 2-story house, or it ought to look like a 1.5-story house.
Sure. Right.
I think that is correct, Alan. I think that it looks like something that it's really not when you get to the side. And I don't want to repeat, I'm not pop-up again, because that is not, as far as I know, any kind of term that, it's a made-up thing. Pop-up, to my knowledge, we don't, in historic buildings, we don't say, oh, and we approved the pop-up second story. I think that we're kind of off track when we talk that way, is that we should, an airplane bungalow is a certain style of bungalow that has a second story that does not cover the entire first floor. So it's not that. That's not how you've designed that. And I think one of your other ones is kind of like an airplane bungalow, where it's set back and it's just this one room with windows on all four sides. So that's completely different than what you've done, which it looks like you're building a two-story house, but it just...
And the airplane style is kind of like, to me, it's kind of like a story and a half, because the upper story usually has a low, it's not a real big.
It's not a full, right.
So that's what I meant. From the front, it's a 2.5-story house.
Right.
But the front doesn't look bad.
Is there a reason why it's not a complete two-story house?
That's what fit our floor plan. We wanted 2 bedrooms and a double bath upstairs, and then also we have a vaulted ceiling in the back half of the house. That's why we oriented to the front, but we could orient it to one of the sides of the front, going further back. And we wanted to keep the mast in the front of the building as opposed to a rear airplane or rear second story to fit in with the houses around us.
I think it's very impressive from the front, and being the least qualified up here to talk about architectural design, it's a little shocking when you look at the east and west elevation. It's just like kind of what happened a little bit. And then take no windows, like Joe was saying. It was just, takes you by surprise just a little bit. The front is fantastic.
I'm not familiar, because I wasn't here when you all reviewed the new one that's being completed on 16th Street. This does look a lot like that one. It was a full 2-story.
It was, yeah.
The one I'm speaking about, the one that's almost finished on 16th Street, it's very similar in the front to your drawing.
I'm familiar with that house.
And it's almost one of those where, in the end, it's going to look like it's always been there. I'm not sure that that's totally supposed to be our intent, but I think, and the reason is, I think the windows and so forth.
Well, so I could walk away with some guidance on the second story if we were to keep it as a square as it is, or turn from a rectangle to a square. Can I have any guidance on how deep it would need to be to become, to be satisfactory? Or
what was that?
If we were to maintain the second story as the full width of the building, how far back would it need to go to be adequate?
Oh, you mean to make the front section deeper?
Yes. Or is there an issue with the entire design in that the tall gable and it all just it makes it impossible?
Square.
I feel like we're designing it right now, and I don't feel comfortable with that. I think we should continue it and just have you continue working with staff on it.
Okay.
Because I don't think any of us feel comfortable with the state in which it is right now, especially with all the conditions that staff has on it. I think you really need to understand what it means of what they're asking, and I'd feel more comfortable if the drawings reflected more those concerns.
So that's item 3.
I would move to continue them all, because we really need to look at it as a whole. I wouldn't approve to install a driveway and construct a garage without the house, but that's just me. All right, well then, I move to continue HPCA 14-00179, all items, to the
So October 1st is the next meeting. We would need all of your new materials by Tuesday of next week.
I think you may need
or we can do the November 5th meeting. and you'll have more time. November?
Well, I'm not sure yet. We will try to go for October. But before I depart, can there be any direction on the brick material, or the brick size?
We do have to set a date that it's continued to.
Oh,
We
October
have to
1st.
specify.
October 1st.
To October 1st.
Yes.
Okay, is that a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer Bourne, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay. Put on the brick.
I think brick obviously can be an appropriate material.
The size of the brick. King
The
size?
size of the brick, I don't care for king-size brick because it is not, at least to my knowledge, an historic size of brick. Typically you see an 8-inch modular brick, and that presents a certain scale. When you get to a king-size brick, it starts to look like something that you put on a shopping center out in the suburbs or something like that. And so I tend to prefer approving modular 8-inch brick in historic districts.
I agree, especially on a smaller structure. Jennifer?
I agree.
Thank you for the advice.
Okay, thank you. Oh, can we, really? Okay, take a 5-minute break? I'll load this, hit the gavel.
You could rent it as an Airbnb room. He could make his mortgage that way. I'm sure he needs some extra money.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Do whatever you can. I'm going to talk. Office. Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem. If it's somebody that doesn't do that, the attic is I appreciate it.
HPCA 14-00180 at 625 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Floyd Simon, care of 625 Northwest 19th LLC by Catherine Montgomery for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct garage with light fixtures and gutters and downspouts, elective. 4, install concrete curb with pavers and gravel fill, elective. 7, replace rolled asphalt at back gable with hardy plank siding, elective. 10, reconstruct second floor porch deck and ceilings of front porches, elective. 12, construct first floor back deck and steps, elective. 13, remove existing landing and construct second floor back stair and landing, elective. And 15, remove screen and back door and infill with brick, elective.
Floyd Simon, 900 Northwest 16th.
Just realized my mic was on. Sorry about that.
Item number 12, looked like we already had administrative approval on that.
Do you know, Angela? I don't recall. Yeah, I think it would have qualified for administrative approval. We'll look and see if there's a copy of that in the file. Or, yeah, if you have your CA, then that would be correct. There you go.
Sorry, didn't wait.
Okay, we can just strike that one. We
Okay.
don't need to take any action on that.
Okay.
Katie, did you have anything that you felt like we needed to know about this particular project?
A couple of our comments, one was recommending wood siding instead of the hardy flake siding at the back of the house. That was one of staff's concerns. The proposed garage is large, but given that it's a multi-unit property, we thought the commission might be comfortable with the size of that, but that's something to definitely look closely at. They're proposing a ribbon driveway, which the guidelines allow. We don't see those all the time, but it's definitely a historic feature. And then kind of a different paving material at the back in the parking area by the garage, and this is something we talked with the applicant about quite a bit, because city code has certain requirements for paving surfaces and what you can park a car on versus paving in a backyard. So just to let you know, we've kind of talked through all of those code-related issues with that, and we were comfortable with the material they proposed. So,
Are you talking about the siding on the back of the house or the siding on the garage?
On the back of the house.
Yeah, we were going to go back with wood.
Go with wood.
Wood on that.
Angela, did you have any other thoughts to?
And then staff had also recommended a condition that floodlights not be installed on the garage structure. What do you think about that?
Those were going to be just for security purposes.
Right.
Not, are they on the back? On the sides of the garage.
And if you need light, I mean, there are other ways to provide.
Well, we have also decorative lights on the front of it.
Right, right.
Those are just more like motion sensor security lights.
Yeah, if you can either remove, not install the floodlights that aren't really historically appropriate, then that's great. Or if you want to come back with a different proposal of a different fixture, if you need light there.
I'm sure we could come up with something that could be more appropriate or take them out completely.
Okay, all right. Did I see a comment from a neighbor?
Yes, sorry. We have a letter, I apologize. We have a letter from a neighbor that should be in with all of your other materials, and is mostly, yes, addressing issues with the with changes to the utilities in the area related to the proposed garage, and I guess concerns about the height of the garage and how that's affecting the existing utility lines. As far as the utilities themselves, that's kind of not our purview, but we did receive that letter, so if you can look through that, and we were able to get it to the applicant prior to the meeting, so I don't know if you have any comments in response to that.
Well, to be clear, we were going to bury the line, and then when they went back there and inspected where a structure might go, they chose to do most everything that was discussed, and that had nothing to do with me. And we were going to see where the structure ended up to see if we could put it in the corner of our lot, but I couldn't give her, I think her name was Pam, any answer because it was so early on. But that was really OG&E's call on all of that.
Right, that's kind of their deal. And it seems to me that the garage itself is not very tall at all. It's got a flat roof and it's fairly short.
Correct.
You know, there's no gable end on it or anything. So I think you've made the garage about as short as you can make it.
Is there
still work with.
Is there a height of it in here?
It's like 12 feet, isn't it? Something. $10.6.
10.6.
Yeah. It's pretty short.
That's 10.6 at the front, and it slopes back.
How much bigger is it than the original garage?
Do we know how big the original garage was?
Ken Onchman, 1300 North Chartel. It's hard to say because the garages are gone. There was originally in 1922, from the Sanborn map, there was a accessory building that was centered in the backyard along the alleyway. Later on, before 1949, a secondary garage was built between that building and the west fence line. That one was actually designated as an auto house in the Sanborn maps. The heights of those, we don't know. We have a remnant of the north foundation, but it's maybe 10 feet long and it's incomplete. So we can't really say how big they were, since the Sanborns aren't scalable.
And this is historically a multi-family structure, right? Right, yeah.
I like the old photograph. Photograph. Okay. Questions? More?
We know some of our paving proposals for the backyard might raise some eyebrows with Public Works, so would it be prudent, but we want to try it because we think it's time to start doing something a little different, but do you think it would be prudent if we ask for the option of that being concrete instead so we don't have to come back if they balk?
I think we can do that, or we could do it as an administrative amendment if you get down the road and decide that's what you want to do. Either way, we could include, we could probably just include the concrete as a condition.
Okay, we'd appreciate it.
I hope you are successful.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I would move to approve HPCA 14-00180, items 10, 12, 13, and what's that?
12.
We backed out 12. That's right, he had his administrative approval. Items 10, 13, and 15, yes, straight up approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Items are approved.
I'd move to approve HPCA 14-00180, items 1 and 7, to construct a garage and replace composition roll siding in back gable with the following conditions. A, that the floodlights will not be installed on the garage structure, and B, that the comp roll siding in the rear gable will be replaced with wood lap siding to match the exposure on the proposed garage.
Okay.
I second it. Do you want something to be in there where you are able to put lights in, but just not floodlights?
Could staff approve another fixture?
Yeah, I think we can do that administratively.
And, sorry, but you were saying to match the lap siding on the garage. The lap siding on the garage is going to be hardy plank. I might have misheard you then.
No, that's correct. The siding on the back of the house was going to be wood.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Jeff Park, second by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Items approved.
Nope.
That's next.
No, that's the last one.
Okay.
I move to approve HPCA 14-00180, item 4, to install curbing, pavers, and gravel at Drive with unique circumstances and condition. Condition that the color of the proposed curb and pavers will be subtle and neutral to remain minimally visible from the public right-of-way, and the condition that the, how should we word it, the permeable pavers be substituted with concrete.
How should we phrase that? That the applicant has the option to use standard concrete that meets the guidelines?
Yes.
Yeah.
What she said.
Yes, that. That word's it nicely. The unique circumstance being that this is a multi-car garage has been determined to be appropriate for the use of this property. A wider drive is necessary to safely exit the garage at the 3rd and 4th bays.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeff Parks, second by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, approved. Okay, very good. And now, that's all of our regular document, other business, right? Item 7.
SPUD 778 at 3200 North Walker Avenue, Edgemere Park, Ward 6, to receive a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission on the proposed simplified planned unit development known as SPUD 778. This is a SPUD that is related to the development of a community health center within Edgemere.
Community school. What'd you say?
Community school, community health center.
Health center.
Within the school. So the only thing the SPUD is really changing is the allowed use, because right now those uses associated with that facility are not allowed under the existing zoning. The school would remain part of the historic district. Any exterior changes to the building or the site would continue to come to the commission just like they always have and like they do now. We do have a letter from the neighborhood because they had been working with the applicant on some revisions to the language in the SPUD addressing installation of portable buildings, addressing administrative amendments to the SPUD, in future amendments to the SPUD and how those would be reviewed, and just addressing some of the language with how it identifies the role of the HP Commission in the SPUD. So that is apparently all still being negotiated between the applicant and other city department staff.
So you're wanting us to recommend or not to the planning commission?
So the commission, depending on your level of comfort with it, could make a recommendation that you support the SPUD in concept and that the applicant and neighborhood continue to address the concerns that they've raised. Or if you feel like it's still all too up in the air, you could continue it to a future meeting
Okay.
and ask that they get it
Is there a
clarified.
representative from the applicant? Don't see anybody. So, representative from the neighborhood, I recognize.
There is. Okay, Jan Hook, I live at 3101 North Harvey Parkway. I'm the chair of the Neighborhood HP Committee. And we had met with the city and, planning department, and Dave Lopez represented the school. So we thought we had language agreed upon. It just did not get included. I talked to J.J. Chambliss this morning, and they said they sent it to the city, but they had had no response.
Sent it to the school district.
The school district, I'm sorry, the school district had not responded. So I did just get an email just a few minutes ago that Brandon Carey, District Council for the district, is okay with the language, but I haven't seen this direct from the school district. So they may be okay with it, but...
What are some of the recommended changes, or most important ones maybe?
Did you get a copy of this? I sent in Eric Groves.
The SPUD? Oh, the changes.
Correct.
Yep, you should have a copy of the changes at your seat. We passed those out prior to the meeting today.
Is it in red with the...
It's black and white, but...
Okay.
It's in bold, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you'll see on page 1, last part of the second paragraph, it said no administrative change shall be made to this SPUD unless and until such change is reviewed and approved by the HP planning staff, because the city has leeway to approve administratively, the planning staff, changes to the SPUD. It was actually J.J. Chambliss's suggestion that we put that in. So HP staff will have to review those before rezoning or zoning staff can approve those. So there was that. The other major thing is it's item 4 on the second page, building setback lines. No temporary buildings constructed of metal or otherwise shall be permitted in this SPUD. So we just want to ensure that we're not going to get any portable buildings in there. So those are the major things. We've just, that's also listed in the other development regulations under architecture. No temporary buildings.
Page 3.
Page 3.
Okay. Any comments? What's prompted this? Can you give us a little background what prompted the SPUD?
It's necessary to allow the community health center to operate. That's not a permitted use in an HP district, and so the SPUD will allow that. So naturally, we're concerned. We're supportive of the community school initiative. We just want to be sure the building is protected.
So I guess technically it removes it from it's zoned HP right now. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it's being zoned from HP to a SPUD, or does that zoning remain in place and the SPUD is some sort of overlay? How does that?
Explain.
The SPUD becomes the all-inclusive package.
the zone.
It is the thing.
Yes.
That describes every use, every possible thing that can happen on the property. So.
But this SPUD has language in it that that directs any development to the HP staff and commission.
That's what I'm understanding they would like to have in it.
Okay.
And so that's what you can do with the SPUD, is design it to be whatever it is you want it to be. And then once it's approved, then it becomes the rules regarding that particular piece of property.
We've had some before that were in neighborhoods that were HL,
Right.
where that's the overlay, and
Correct.
they've just kind of written it like it's a SPUD with a HL overlay. And that's a little bit cleaner because the base zoning kind of makes it confusing since it's all changing. But yes, they have every intention of, and the way this is written, everything would still go through the HP Commission just like it would right now.
With the changes, with the modifications.
I mean, I think even without those modifications, it's written so that all those requirements would be in place for it to come back to HP Commission. I know there's some of these changes, just proposed changes, make that a little more clearly stated.
Just so I understand this, Jen, the clinic would be in temporary buildings, right?
No, it's actually going to be inside the school.
What is
They're
about
gonna
this temporary?
remodel it.
What is the mention of the temporary buildings?
The mention of the temporary buildings is because the district frequently does that. They're doing that with a lot of schools on the south side. Because, where they don't have enough classrooms,
Okay,
they put these temporary buildings in, and they tend to become permanent. And we just want to be sure that that isn't allowed.
Because they did disappear at Wilson, which was good, of course.
So with the district council, whoever with their assurance that changes are acceptable, is the neighborhood okay with that understanding?
Right. I think I'm not okay just to say, we believe that they accept it. And if you can approve it conditionally, approve it on the condition that they accept the wording as provided by Eric Groves.
And he's a resident who's also acting as the neighborhood's attorney.
That's correct.
So we could do a recommendation to approve the SPUD with the condition that the language changes requested by the neighborhood or comparable, in case they need to do some wordsmithing, be incorporated into the SPUD.
So we're looking for a motion to recommend approval to the Planning Commission with those conditions.
And we get to approve the language. I mean, if they do make changes, then...
I don't think it would come back to us unless it was very dramatically changed, but it would go to, our recommendation for that would go to Planning Commission, and that would be part of their staff report and everything. So, and I mean, anytime we do recommendations like these, they can take it or leave it. It's just a recommendation from us.
So the neighborhood would have to check and see what's actually submitted to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I thought everything was fine till last night, so...
Okay. I'm looking at you for some reason. Anybody have a motion?
I make a motion what Katie said. Okay. I make a motion to recommend to...
Approval. It's under staff recommendation.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I know. With a condition.
Right.
I had it. Where's? Okay. I make a motion to approve.
Recommend approval.
Recommend that the commission recommend approval to the Planning Commission for the base rezoning request regarding the SPUD 778 with the condition that with the recommendation that the wording approved and suggested by the neighborhood be included. That will...
Condition.
Okay.
Or comparable.
Or what?
Or comparable.
Or comparable.
Recommend approval with a condition.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. All right. It's been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. It's recommended. Thank you.
Thanks.
And for communications and reports.
Lots of administrative approvals, as always. We can answer questions about those if you have any. Under withdrawals, it is not listed here. It'll be on next month's agenda, but wanted to let you know that application number 14-00088, the application to demolish the house at 2900 North Harvey Parkway, has been withdrawn. We don't know what the future plans are for that house or if they'll be back with new information, but as of right now, that item has been withdrawn. So just wanted to keep everybody informed on that one.
Okay.
City Council, there's nothing listed on the agenda, but I was going to let everyone know that the 2 National Register nominations that we saw last month will go to City Council next week, and then the donation of the easement on the Skirvin will go to City Council next week, finally. That's been a long time coming. Board of Adjustment, we have 2 appeals that have been going to the Board of Adjustment, I feel like, for 7 years and keep getting continued. Those go again tomorrow, so we'll let you know what the outcome is on those. Nothing for Planning Commission.
Municipal Councilor?
Nothing.
Next meeting date, October 1st, 2 p.m. The workshop is canceled for September 10th. Next regular scheduled workshop is November 12th at 11:30 p.m. a.m. That says p.m. on there.
Oh,
I think you meant a.m.
Yeah.
That's going to be a long one. Okay. All right, items, commissioners. I have one. Happy birthday, George Massey.
Thank you very much. Can't think of no place that I'd rather be.
I don't know about that.
Anybody else have an item?
I'll give a report for Katie and I. We're continuing to work on our new continuing education class for realtors. And we have our first draft of the whole outline, and we have to meet this week to finish that. It'd be a 3-hour continuing education credit for realtors and their real estate, licensing to be part of their training and realize. So we're working on that. We'll keep you informed.
If that can in any way be a continuing education unit for AIA?
No, we will speak in anywhere that they will let us come.
That would be great.
In touch with,
I think it might be apropos. I mean, it's really...
Yeah, it is. Whoever we need to talk to about getting, and I know I've worked with Melissa Hunt before getting credit, so that would be her look into that and see what we need to do.
You'd get a lot of people attending.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Our broker owner in our office, Gigi Faulkner, is on the Downtown Design Review, so most of her section will be about that and the other downtown areas, so people will be aware of it. And the MLS will have some new drop-downs so that when people are even searching the initial search, they will know exactly what area they are looking at. Sometimes it gets missed if it's in HP. That's why we design metal riders, Jeffrey saw in his neighborhood, that type of thing. So we're working on that.
I would like to comment on, I've been talking to Katie about a problem in my neighborhood, Shepherd, about sidewalks and our review. They are proposing to put, the maps has a new sidewalk going down on Penn, which will be a very unusual situation because it's on a hill. I don't know how they're going to do a sidewalk, but my question to her was, what is it coming here to be reviewed?
Is it in the district?
It is in the district, but she's pursued this, but Rita, I've got to keep doing some work. Okay.
It showed up on the, how you get I guess everyone else does too, gets the little email about cases that have been submitted. Yeah, and it showed up on that list.
We've approved some sidewalks
Okay.
that are in various neighborhoods, including some in Shepherd. But
Yeah.
I've got to get with the maps people and figure out exactly what.
Well, there's also some bond projects.
Because this is a really weird situation where it's sloped like that, and it has driveways coming into Penn that are at an angle that the sidewalk would somehow go across. And on the other side, it's totally flat, all commercial, the entire length. I don't understand why
Like it should be on the other side?
I don't know why the sidewalk is not on the other side where it's flat and already paved. Anyway, so if you all see any of that or hear, finding.
See what we can find out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other items? Citizens to be heard? Yes, sir. Yeah, come on up. Come on up. Give us your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Tom Edgen.
Yeah, this is one of the first times we've had a citizen stay this long. Wow.
Appreciate it.
Stamina.
Self-inflicting pain.
It's still. Usually lights turn off before we get done. Air conditioning. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my case actually was brought up right at the beginning, and it went by real quick. It's about the garage structure. It's kind of leaning a little bit. And, you know, there's this business that's being dilapidated, and they might have like tear it down or something. So I was just wanting to just be reinformed on just what's going to happen on that.
The particular case you're talking about?
Item 1. It's the dilapidated garage.
Yeah, that
right?
garage, yeah, that's it, yeah.
So the commission, when a property's in a historic district and it goes through the dilapidated process, the commission just makes a recommendation to say whether or not the structure is historic. So the commission did make that recommendation. That will be forwarded on to Code Enforcement Development Services, and then they'll take it the rest of the way through the process. So you'll get a copy of that information, and the Code Enforcement Officer will be in touch with you about what happens next as far as the...
I'm actually, I don't know if it was the earthquake or the ice storm, but you can tell it's leaning. And I'm wanting to take it down.
You want to take it down?
Well, I need to go to put it back up straight.
You want to repair it?
I don't really want to destroy it. I just want to
straighten it.
Yeah, I need to put it back up straight. And the roof is, the roof has got a hole in it there. But since the thing is tilting, it didn't make sense to fix the roof before I get the thing back up straight again. So I'm just wondering what my procedure would be on that. But I'm ready to take that roof off.
So I think
but I need to get it straightened up somehow.
Your first step is going to be to talk with Code Enforcement about the fact that it's already in the works to be declared dilapidated, and see what their process is. I know they try to give people every opportunity to make repairs, if possible. And then, depending on the level of repair that's required, you might need a certificate of appropriateness from us for some of the work to the garage. But I would talk to your Code Enforcement Officer first.
Okay.
Do you know who that is? You need a name? Or?
Yes, I know.
It should be on your notice of violation.
I'm sorry?
It should be on your notice of violation.
Yes, I have that.
And then also, there's a date, a council hearing date. So pay a lot of attention to that, because if you want to have something to say, you have to come to that council meeting. If you don't come to the council meeting, they won't pull it from the docket, and they'll just declare it if they determine that's appropriate. So talk to your inspector and also come to the council meeting.
To the council meeting, okay.
Yes, and it will be on your notice of violation what date that is. And council meetings start at 8:30 on Tuesdays.
I'm hoping that's probably after this meeting, I'm assuming, but I don't know.
Yes, it won't go to City Council until they've gotten our recommendation.
Okay.
So it won't have happened yet, yeah.
Be sure and come.
But I will, but I guess I'm really, that roof's going to have to come down, you know, so I guess it's okay, I can go ahead and start taking that off then, or?
No, you really shouldn't do any work to it until you've got all the proper approvals to start doing work. So I would talk to Code Enforcement first and then see where we need to go from there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that was our first potential earthquake defense. Just wait, there's going to be more. Okay, so that's the last citizen. We're adjourned. I love that.